Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another reaction to Lost in the Pond, and this one is 4 ways British and American houses are very different. I did a reaction to, it was a similar video from him. It was like how US bedrooms and UK bedrooms are like different, and it was quite an interesting sort of, it's just interesting to see the differences in things that you wouldn't expect to be so sort of just, I guess, different, like I've said 5 times already. But yeah, I don't know, like I guess like sort of the style of the houses, for example, like in the UK you get a lot of sort of the houses, like you get a lot of the what is it, Tudor houses, like the what with the sort of the black lines and sort of, how do you describe it? Is it Tudor homes? Tudor homes UK, just so I can sort of not feel stupid. It is Tudor homes, right? Yeah, like these. I don't know if I might be wrong with this, but like maybe not to this degree. You maybe get a bit like smaller houses, but you do get a lot of homes with this sort of style. I don't know if that's like a thing you'd see in the US, and just other things like that. Maybe it's going to be to do with things indoors as well as outdoors. I don't really know. I'm not too sure really, but yeah, I'm just gonna get into this one. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy. If you want more Lost in the Pond, just comment in the description. I can't speak. Comment in the comment section what you'd want to see from his channel or any other channels similar, and also check his channel out because he makes really good videos. For those who don't know, but I'm sure you do know who he is. But yeah, man, let's just get into this. Let's see what the differences are, and yeah, let's just get into this one.
And tea drinkers that we are, we love our kettles, don't we?
Had a tea earlier, mate.
They're not just...
It's weird, bro. I didn't used to drink tea. I'm drinking tea loads now, like green tea with a bit of honey. Oh my god, bro, it is the best thing. Or matcha tea. Oh mate, but I'm not into like the British breakfast tea. Is tea like a big thing in the US though? Like, because I know like in the UK we get memed about it, like drinking tea. But is tea like a thing in the US that people drink? I know cold tea is a big thing, but is like hot tea like in the morning or like whenever, like is that a thing that is still drunk in the US? And it's going to be drunk, but is it drunk a lot?
Any kettles, these are ones you plug in and then hit the switch to turn on the plug, because I forgot to mention that our plug sockets also have switches.
Wait, what? US plug sockets don't have switches? Wait, what? Are you joking? What the fuck? Wait, this is US, isn't it? Wait, there's no plug sockets in the US. Wait, this is US plug sockets, right? I assume it is, yeah. Bro, there's no, wait, what? So the electric is just on 24, I mean, it's always on, like, I swear that means you use more power, though. I mean, I don't know. I was taught to turn the plugs off when I'm not using it because it obviously uses power, but if you don't have plugs in the first place, maybe it just automatically turns off when nothing's plugged in. I don't know.
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to houses, the things we live inside. If you're watching this video, it's quite likely you're either inside a house right now or you're near one, because otherwise you wouldn't probably have internet access quite as easily. To anyone that might be new to this channel, come on in, get yourself a cup of tea. This isn't a genuine offer to come into my house. I'm just saying, join the channel. This is good. And hello to everybody who's been here a long time. Today we're going to look at several ways in which British and American houses are very, very different. Having lived in the United States for over 11 years, I've lived in my fair share of houses here, just as I did in Britain. So I think I have a decent grasp of how houses work. Even tiny ones like this one, which is about 400 square feet. I'm joking, this is a professional studio. Don't question me. And so without further ado, let's take a look at 4 ways that British and American houses are very, very different. Neither Britain nor America is devoid of variety when it comes to their housing styles, and that's because, well, with each sort of passing phase of history comes new designs to meet new needs and just new style preferences. And because of this variety, I'm not going to cover every single one of them, because that would keep us all here until next Wednesday, which would be good for my metrics, but not good for your sanity. So let's take a look at how some of the housing styles do vary from country to country. In Britain, a lot of the distinctive styles are also tied up with the period in which they were built. So you could go all the way back to the Tudor period, and you do find Tudor housing dotted around here and there. In fact, if you go to the city of York, for example, there's quite a lot of sort of Tudor buildings there. They're quite ornate with wood paneling, and they're the sort of place that you might imagine that Shakespeare lived. But wood is less indicative of British houses than you would see in America, where wood is actually quite a common material.
But I find this crazy. I remember, like, 'cause I remember seeing like a video that sort of described how, like, why houses in the US like sort of get ripped apart by like hurricanes and tornadoes and like all this sort of possible storms in the US. And it's weird to me because I feel like brick houses would be a lot harder. Like a lot of the houses in the UK would be a lot harder to actually tear down from storms and stuff because of just how they're built. Whereas in the US, they're sort of built in a different way, and I just feel like they're a bit less sturdy. But it's weird because in the UK we never get storms like that, but in the US they do. It's like it sort of should have been switched, and we should have had those sort of houses, and the US should have had our sort of houses in terms of how they're built. Again, some houses are probably built different, but I guess, like you're saying, in the general sort of terms, what you usually sort of see. I don't think I've ever seen I mean, I probably have, but like wooden houses, I just don't think they're like a thing in the UK, unless it's like. I mean, I can't really speak, but I don't really know if I've seen one.
For building houses. In Britain, from about the Georgian period onward, you're going to see quite a lot of brickwork. Georgian period houses absolutely exist. People live in them, but they tend to be these opulent-looking houses that to have notable pops of white rectangle, which are
I see these all the time.
It's very nice. They look like dolls' houses that you should live in. But then come the Victorian age, we started moving toward these sort of like orangey brick buildings, right? And a lot of them were terraced houses, which is what Americans would call row houses. And they just look very industrial, right? You could imagine a chimney sweep going up and getting his face covered in soot. And then we move into the Edwardian period, where houses are sort of similar to those of the Victorian age. They're just lighter colours with more chimney sweeps, if Mary Poppins is anything to go by. Now, during World War II, when the Nazis bombed the ever-loving crap out of us, a lot of the houses went boom. And then after World War II, there was a housing boom. And you started to see a build-up of new, more simple houses, kind of like the one I grew up in. Now, that's a castle. That didn't happen. But I grew up in something more like this.
This is a lot more sort of what I'm familiar to. I mean, in the place I'm from, I've not actually been to a house like this. I didn't live in a house like this. The houses that I lived in are tiny. They're really thin. I used to live in, sorry, really thin, next to each other, and it's just no real space. It's weird how they're built, but I guess the further out you get from the city, it depends. And I guess it depends what city you're from as well.
That's not Lawrence's actual house. Despite what fairy tales may suggest, most of us have never lived in a chocolate box house, but those do exist. A chocolate box house is the kind of house you might see in the Cotswolds, right? It's very quaint looking, it's got thatch roofing, and it looks like this. And if, like me, you're wondering why it's called a chocolate box house, yet it doesn't look edible, it goes back to the 1950s/60s when chocolate boxes would have on their facade a kind of depiction of a beautiful English countryside. And these types of houses would often feature on said box. Now again, this is by no means an entire repository of British houses. Neither is the following an entire repository of American houses. It's just the more common ones that you will see when you are here. So Cape Cod houses, you know these types of houses, right? They're the ones with the wood paneling down the side. And I said a moment ago that America makes good use of wood in this country because there's just so much of it. So many woodlands around the country, and it's a huge country from which to pull that resource. So they do, and it's cheap. But funnily enough, the Cape Cod style has its history with English settlers who came here in the 17th century and started building Cape Cod style houses in New England. Now, during the post-World War II period, partly to provide, housing to veterans coming back from war, there was a revival of Cape Cod-style housing, and it started to be built not just in New England, but all along the East Coast and in the Midwest, and even out west. Anybody that's seen the Goonies will know that. And it was this style of housing that I first moved into when I moved to the United States. And I've got to say, even despite the Midwest winters, it was really warm. You'd think it would be quite drafty because of all of the gaps in the wood. You could go to specific streets or neighborhoods or areas of the United States and only find these houses for miles and miles. So I lived in one of those, but my grandparents-in-law lived in what is known as a ranch-style house. And these are sort of really low-down buildings, don't typically have 2 floors to them. And once again, these houses...
Wait, so is his family... Is some of his family actually from the US, but then he moved to the UK, then he moved back kind of thing?
It became popular after World War II. There was just generally a big sort of boom after World War II, again in the United States in that regard. Well. The 20th century, though, did see more and more revivalism of old styles. So you had, mock Tudor, or should I say revival Tudor, which more or less replicated the kind of Tudor buildings that you would see in England with some differences. Oh, wow. And I've seen those types of buildings in Boston, for example. I've also seen them in Indiana. As well as that, the 20th century saw colonial revivalism, though most people don't live in those houses. Maybe one day when I get that grand piano, I'll think about it. And so that's an extremely basic and rudimentary breakdown of some of the different styles that you'll see in each country. But there's one big difference between all of the houses in both countries.
Size?
And it's this.
Yeah, bro. UK houses are so small, man. Compared to the US, bro, I genuinely think the house I used to live in is probably 3 times smaller than the average sort of house you'd find in the US.
Let's face it,
nuts.
it's time to face up to some home truths. Compared to America, Britain is microscopic. The United States is absolutely massive and needs to be stopped. And the same is true of each country's average house size. Right, so in the United States, houses just tend to be way more spacious. And we're not just talking about millionaire houses here, we're talking about your average house. So the average size of an American single-family home is approximately 1,600 square feet. In the UK, we're looking at an average of about 900 square feet. So why the difference? Well, one reason is population density. In Britain, we're all a bit packed together. Actually, that partially accounts for why everything is smaller in Britain. Not everything, not the cups. But in America, there's just so much land, and relative to that land, so few people. So, make them as large as you want, and they do. They're huge. But also, a large majority of American houses are relatively new, meaning that they were able to benefit from, building methods and materials that other countries like Britain were not. And the post-war expansion of American highways meant that this was enhanced even more. Those materials could be moved around the country more easily, and of course, this ushered in a more grand housing development. Now, all size aside, try saying that after 10 tepid tequilas, things become subtly different once you're inside the houses of either country.
The gadgets.
Is gadgets the right word? I don't know. I'll have to fire my graphics team. Either way, we're essentially talking about accessories, the things you have in your house that make that house work, even when you're doing the house work. So for example, airflow, right? America's bigger on its overhead fans and air conditioning units. We don't usually use those. I mean, we like to punish ourselves, especially in the summer. But we can crack a window open and it doesn't get oppressively hot. Always. And so we've mostly been fine with this situation. It does mean that insects get in. So daddy longlegs will get in the house and mosquitoes, but it's a small price to pay for not having air conditioning. I actually quite like air conditioning now that I've lived in the US.
Man, I need aircon, bro. Oh my god. If I told you, there was about about a week span in my old house where I found about 5 huge spiders in my room. And it's because in the summer, obviously, it gets so damn hot, and the spiders will find a way to get into your house because I have my windows open 24/7. It's fucked, bro. It's absolutely fucked. And they'd be crawling along my bed, I'd wake up and I'd just see a spider, bro. Aircon is just, I don't know why. With how summer is hot here and humid as hell. The air is just so thin and hot and just makes you want to cry. And then we've got to have our windows open. It doesn't even help that much, unless there's a breeze or something. And then just loads of bugs get in your room, like moths. Huge moths would just be getting my light all night, 24/7. And I'd be too scared to try and get them out, or try and hit them with a book or something. But I'll end up breaking my light or something. It's just messed up, bro. Why can't we have aircon, man?
Speaking of insects, you also don't see in Britain those insect screens that you put in the windows, hence why they're getting in. In America, they're virtually in every house, but then again, in Britain, we don't have black widows or brown recluses or the types of mosquitoes that make your face go like this. So I can see why it's justified. I mean, you still get ants, or is that just me? Not sure how they get in, maybe cracks in the wall, or maybe through the plug sockets. The plug sockets, of course, are different in both countries too. In Britain, you have the 3-pronged outlets, and in America, you sometimes have 3, but occasionally 2. And they're smaller in America than they are in Britain. That's one of the few things about which you can say that. Separate taps, of course, for hot and cold water. Americans combine them all into one. Where's the logic in that? I'm joking. And while we're on the subject of sinks, few things about which you can say that. Separate taps, of course, for hot and cold water. Americans combine them all into one. Where's the logic in that?
To be fair, actually, no. Is he saying that we have 2 taps in the UK?
In America than they are in Britain. That's one of the few things about which you can say that. Separate taps, of course, for hot and cold water. Americans combine them all into one.
I think that was a thing a lot back in the day, but now with more modern houses and how things are being sort of engineered nowadays, I think 99.9% of houses now have just one tap for both. But actually, thinking about it, some houses do actually have hot and cold for wash in the toilets, but I feel in the kitchen you always just have one tap. I don't know, but that's actually a good point when I think about it. Is it just a thing in the US that you never have 2 taps for both?
Where's the logic in that? I'm joking. And while we're on the subject of sinks, most British sinks don't have that sort of food waste disposal thing that you press the button and it does the noise. Amazing. That was one of the best things I discovered. I didn't discover it, somebody else came up with the idea and I just used it. But it's amazing. It's just so pleasing to know that all of that gunk gets broken down, and just don't put your hamster in there. I've learned that lesson from someone else. I didn't do it, just read about it on Reddit. Letterboxes. Firstly, Americans don't call them letterboxes, but mailboxes, and typically don't have them on the door, but outside in the garden, yard.
Oh,
the garden / yard.
They're the most typical American things, mailboxes, man. Never in the UK, bro, because our gardens are so small, it just wouldn't make sense. We've just got like post. We've got people put the post through our doors. It's so weird when you think about people put the post through your doors. It just makes sense to have a post box. But again, our gardens just aren't big enough. The majority of the people, our gardens aren't big enough. That's so weird, man.
It's different, often smaller in Britain, but very well kept up depending on the family.
I wish I think it's so much better having a mailbox.
And just massive yards here with, mesh fences and things like that, or picket fences. Back inside, a lot of properties in the United States will have walk-in closets that are built into the actual walls of the house. Whereas in Britain, you bring your own closet / wardrobe to put your clothes in. And that takes up more space, I've just realised. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot every step of the way. Except when it comes to washing machines and dryers. How cool is this? We combine them both into one giant cube, whereas America has two separate cubes. And tea drinkers that we are, we love our kettles, don't we? But they're not just any kettles. These are ones you plug in and then hit the switch to turn on the plug, because I forgot to mention that our plug sockets also have switches. And then, you turn it on, don't need a stovetop, and it heats up. Just like that, you've got your water, Bob's your uncle, pour it into a mug, there's your cup of tea. In America, you do have the stovetop kettles, and
Wait, what? You don't have the plug kettle? Wait, what? The fuck? I thought that was just a thing everywhere had. Wait, what the hell? That's wild.
He likes that because it does this really pleasing whistling sound at the end. Now, if you were paying attention during that list, you may have noticed that I touched on some of the terminological differences when it comes to housing in either country. And that brings us on to our final entry. It wouldn't be Britain and America if they weren't two countries separated by a common language, and the same is true of the housing world. So let's finish with a rapid fire round looking at those very words. So here in Chicago, I live in a flat, except in America they don't call it flat, it's called an apartment. Something else that you'll find in America though are these condominiums or condos, if you don't fancy saying a word that has condom in it. And we do have those in Britain, they're usually called common hold properties. And I suppose most British people wouldn't go around using that term, whereas you actually hear the term condo quite a lot. It's been suggested to me that I move into a condo, and it sounds good. I mean, when I first heard the term, I thought it sounded like I might be moving onto a lakeside boat or something like that. It is like an apartment, but it's one you would buy. It's real estate. Now, as a child and young adult, I grew up in a house that was known as a semi-detached house. That's when you have a house adjoined to one other house on one side, but not on the other side. In the United States, this is known quite simply as a duplex, which is not...
Is it
a wrestling move?
Is there a lot of I feel like in the US a lot of houses just aren't combined unless you're in like the cities, like the middle of the cities. Duplex houses USA. Oh no, so actually just to think about it, you actually do. Oh wow, I didn't even realise that. Look at that house, that looks nice as hell. Oh, bro, this is a mad duplex, bro. But I'm just kind of thinking, why would you have a duplex? Why wouldn't you just move these houses aside and just have them separately? Because it just makes more sense, right? But I mean, still bougie looking houses.
If it is adjoined on both sides with another house.
But then you've got this in the UK. I forgot what the semi-detached houses UK. I want to see how they compare. But yeah, you'll have them detached, but then they'll be next to another one. Like, it's weird how it's called semi-detached, but you can still, you're so close to another house. Again, in the US, it's just, from what I saw, they seem to be still quite spread out. It's so weird, bro. It really is so weird. They look quite bougie, actually. Bloody hell, these look nice. This is a typical house in the UK. Obviously, a lot of the houses are a lot smaller, but now this is a typical house in the UK. Again, this is still a lot bigger than my old house, for sure, man. My house looks tiny next to that.
House, then you are part of a line of houses that are known as terraced houses in Britain. In America, they're known as row houses because they're all in a row.
No, I want to see US row houses. Sorry I'm doing this, I want to see these though, because I feel like I remember seeing a picture in New York, and the houses, like when they were in a row, it looks kind of wild, but like the houses are still big though. Like they just go up. Are these like 4-story homes? What the hell? This is quite unique. Bloody hell. Is this the US? These are so like different. What the? But again, they're all like 3-story. Again, I'm speaking as if I've seen all of them. There's obviously smaller ones as well. See, this looks a lot more like the UK. Obviously, not like with like the sort of abandoned homes. But say this wasn't abandoned and there was cars and stuff. These are the sort of typical sort of homes you would see. Now let's look at terraced homes in Norwich. I'm not going to show my exact old place, but like, it's just the differences are wild, man. This is sort of what my house looked like. It's so small, bro. So small. Like, man, it's just ridiculous how small our homes are to the US. This is bigger than my house, I'll be honest. Like this, bro. It's just this. The differences in size is ridiculous, man. Mate, when you think about it, it's ridiculous. People from the US looking at this must be like, how do you live in homes this small? But this is just normal. This is the sort of normal like sized house you would see in the UK. This as well, but I lived in one smaller than that. But it's wild, bro. And I had 6 dogs. And I lived with 2 brothers, 1 sister at one point, my mum and my dad. God, my house was cramped to the rim.
Then there's council housing in Britain versus the projects in the United States, and that's just another way of saying public housing. To control the electricity flow in Britain, you have the mains power. In America, you have the grid power. And what if you're sick and tired of the place that you're living in and you just want to relocate somewhere else? In America, you would just simply move. In Britain, you'd move house. And on that note, I'm going to move out to my outro transition because this is the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below if you're watching this from your house right now, or just if you're not. Leave a comment either way. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. A big reminder, by the way, if you want to keep up with me on a day-to-day basis and just see some of the stupid trivia that I come out with, follow me on Twitter.
Shout out to his Twitter and all that kind of stuff. We both follow each other on Twitter actually, because he shouted me out on one of his tweets, which was really cool. But yeah, shout out to Lost in the Pond, man. Check this video out if you haven't already. I'm sure you probably have, but if you haven't, show him some love. Subscribe to his channel. He deserves it. His videos are really, really interesting to see the differences in like homes, cultures, whatever it is. I just find these so interesting to see. Texas sees your British summers and raises you 100 degrees. I need a ceiling fan in every room in the American South. I've never been to a house with a ceiling fan. It's just ridiculous. In the southern US, air conditioning is considered life support. I noticed the British don't laugh at their own jokes, even when they're hilariously funny, while Americans always laugh at their own jokes, especially when they're not funny. It's all lied. Everyone in England lives in a castle. You have to by law. I'm British and my American mother-in-law bought a kettle that she keeps in the cupboard for when I visit. It's so sweet. That's pretty cool. Raise your hand if you're an American living in America and own an electric kettle. So that is a thing then. That's so weird though. It's just like not a common thing. I would love a letterbox at my door because then I wouldn't have. True, actually, that's a good point. But at the same time, it just gets too close to your door, kind of thing. It's actually looking like it is kind of cool that we have letterboxes. Like when they just post it through the door, but still, I don't know. I feel like it's just. Like sometimes your dog will go crazy when it hears like the postman's posting it through the door, and it just sort of, maybe if we had like the post boxes, it wouldn't be as chaotic. But maybe it's just me being stupid. In the UK, 100 miles is a long way. In the US, 100 years is a long time. And so few people, so make them as large as you want, and they do. They're huge. But yeah, this is another interesting video. Again, thank you guys for suggesting this channel. I do really enjoy these video reactions, and I'm definitely down to do more. But again, suggest some more things like this you want to see in future. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.